Okay, I have that it's 10 o'clock, which I believe is the time that this session should begin. And although this is not part of my presentation, I have to say I'm really grateful for Dr. Korchak and his focusing on the theology of education. And it makes me particularly grateful that in the process of certification and in the process of accreditation, the number one mark is always the theological understanding and your commitment to your Lutheran faith and being able to articulate about that. So I feel really good that CCLE is oriented in the right direction that way. So, okay, my name is Jackie Veith. I have been working on the processes for certification for educators and administrators for the last several years. I will continue to do that for a little while longer, and then Anna will take over. So it's the system isn't going to change, just perhaps the personnel. So, okay, well, as you noticed, if you were at the plenary meeting yesterday, we had 14 new educators that joined us in the last year. I mean, that is the largest group, so I would like to challenge all of you to outdo them, by next summer and be able to be recognized as having completed the certification. Okay, so I say it's time to go for it. So, for CCLE certification, we have both educator certification and administrator certification. And there are 3 marks for each. This is available on the website, and there's a pad of paper going around if you want to email me to get a copy of this PowerPoint a little more quickly than when it gets posted. I'll be happy to send it to you. So we have the 3 marks for both educator and administrator certification, and we have almost the identical process for both of them. So we have a application template. We have our documents. We've transitioned into Word documents so that you can just type on them, because we've discovered trying to be fancy with other kinds of documents are great, except then not every school can open them or type into the fields for PDFs and all this. So we kind of went as basic as possible. There are requirements to demonstrate proficiency for each of the 3 marks. We also ask you to write about your future goals and plans. You should be thinking about futures. There is a certification fee, which is $100 for teacher, $100 for administrator, but it's valid for 10 years. So it's still a good bargain compared to the price of certification in some states where it's very high and only good for 5 years. So there is a fee, valid for 10 years. What we do ask you to do is, after you become certified, is every year you get a self-report form where you have a chance to look back and see what did you do this past year in regards to your future goals and plans. So if you had hoped to be able to take a college course, then you write you took your college course. Or if you had hoped to come to CCLE summer conference and you did, then you did that. So that's the process for it. And this is just a quick example of what the application template looks like. Of course, it's not on green, it's on white. But so you're just going to be telling me very basic information, your name, your address, email address, phone number, current school position if it's applicable. Can homeschool educators become certified? Absolutely. We've had several homeschool educators who were able to demonstrate proficiency in the marks. So homeschool or a brick and mortar building doesn't make any difference. You can do both of them. or both of them work. We do ask for your current church membership. We ask for educational preparation information. We will eventually ask for your transcript and part of the requirements. We ask what's your level of participation in classical education. So maybe you've been coming to CCLE for several summers, or maybe this is your first one, but you went to ACCS, or you went to the Society for Classical Learning. Somewhere you probably have heard about classical learning since you're trying to apply to be certified by us. So we ask, are there additional experiences? Because we don't know what you have done, you will need to tell us. And then finally, we do ask for your transcript and a resume or a curriculum vitae. When you supply that, it's going to apply to several of the requirements for the proficiencies. But you only need to list it once. All of our documents that we ask for, just provide them once, and then we'll use them wherever they apply. Not trying to make this a bureaucratic nightmare. Okay, so that's the application template. Let's get to the marks. For the educator, the marks of a classical Lutheran educator, number 1, again, as Dr. Korchak mentioned, our focus is on an understanding and a commitment to the Lutheran doctrine. So our educator has to be able to demonstrate an understanding and a commitment to Lutheran doctrine. Mark number 2, the educator understands and is committed to the classical approach to curriculum and educational methodology. And then 3rd, the educator effectively performs all administrative responsibilities in the position in a timely, efficient, and professional manner. Okay, just 3 marks, 3 simple ones. The marks of a classical Lutheran administrator. All right. Why, number 1, the administrator demonstrates an understanding of and commitment to Lutheran doctrine, identical to the educator. Number 2, the administrator understands and is committed to a classical approach to curriculum and educational methodology. Again, identical to the educator. Mark number 3, the administrator effectively performs all administrative responsibilities in the position in a timely, efficient, and professional manner. Although the marks are basically identical for both teacher, educator, and administrator, obviously there will be some differences. The differences come in the requirements or the way by which you demonstrate your proficiency. So, the requirements, first of all, is a letter from your pastor. You're from your Lutheran pastor. And for all of you who are pastors, you have to know another pastor. You cannot write a letter for yourself, but surely you know some other pastor that would be willing to write a letter for you. We ask for essays, and here is one of the little tweaks that's the difference between educator and administrator. The educators need to write 5 essays. The administrators write 7 essays, because administrators have all this time. They're not in the classroom, So, but the feeling of the board when we were working on this was that they felt administrators have an even greater responsibility. They have kind of a larger audience that they are dealing with. We need to judge the understanding and commitment even as a little more strongly. So anyway, 2 more for the administrator. The educational proficiencies, transcripts, as I said, if you've provided it in one place, then it counts for here. Coursework, equivalencies. If you have a Lutheran teacher diploma, that solves a lot of things right there. If you don't have one, we do have other ways of demonstrating. Perhaps you've come to the CCLE and you can list off the sessions that you attended, which dealt with the theological issues and theological content. So, some way or other, we have to have something that demonstrates to us your educational proficiencies. We need curriculum work, so we need samples of curriculum work. So for educators, obviously, you're going to share some lesson and unit and course plans. You're going to share with us your approach to grading and your approach to classroom discipline. Now, when I say share, it may be that you write a narrative, or it may be that you already have your disciplinary approach on a piece of paper that you handed out at the beginning of the year to all the parents, and that would suffice. So it's just something that tells us you don't plan to have a progressive classroom where the child decides what he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. We ask for the administrators who aren't necessarily providing lesson and unit plans, for them to give us an overview of the curricular structure of the school. An overview, because since they're responsible for all of it, they should know the structure and how it's integrated and how it is going to work. We ask for the administrator to provide the faculty development program that he or she leads, because again, that's one of the responsibilities of the administrator, is to be leading the teachers in ongoing education. We ask for observations and evaluations. We ask for 2 for both educator and for administrator. If you've never been observed and you've been teaching for a decade and no one has ever observed you, somebody has really done you a disservice. Observations and evaluations are not judgments. They are ways to learn how to improve yourself. And there is no perfect teacher since Christ has died, been resurrected. He hasn't come again yet. There is no perfect teacher. We can all learn. So we ask for them. We do have some CCLE documents, a checklist and some observation forms. If you need or would like to use those, email me. We have 3 email addresses now for CCLE, and I'll have one of them up at the end. We have the executive.director@CCLE, which Anna and I are sharing. There is now also a certification@CCLE.org. So if you're really interested in the certification and you need some forms, feel free to email certification@CCLE.org. Okay, now I talked about the essays and the requirements, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. You probably can't read this, but when you get the document or the PowerPoint on your own, you will see we provide you a list from which you check. We're not saying you have to write on law and gospel. No, it may be your choice to write on law and gospel, or you may prefer to write on vocation. You may prefer to write on the basic assumption of non-Christian worldviews and how they compare and contrast with a Christian worldview. You get to select. So again, educators select 5 topics, administrators select 7. Now, when you are writing on these essays, we do request a minimum of at least a 2-page essay, which, come on, people, you have been through college. You can pull that off easily. But if you really can't say everything you want to in just 2 pages and you go farther, you go a little longer, we will accept 5 pages. We will accept 10 pages. The longest one I think I got was 45 pages. But that covered all of them. So that was a senior paper that, right out of college, but she had chosen enough topics that I could find in those 45 pages. So that was fine. But the point is, as a teacher or an administrator, you should be an articulate communicator. It should not frighten you to write 5 or 7 essays. So we do that. And again, you have a variety of topics. So if you're not nervous about writing about Lutheran worship, because that's not your strong point, you don't pick it. Pick something else.
Dr. Veith,
Yes.
there seems to be on the slide a couple ago, it was 7 for teachers, 9 for administrators, and here it's 5 and 7.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So,
What did I say?
well, you said 5 and 7, but 2 slides ago it was 7 and 9.
Okay, it is 5 and 7. I
All
need
right.
to go back and check I will correct it before I send it out to anyone. So sorry.
That's okay.
I love reading the essays. Yeah. I really do. Even though, as I'll talk later, I don't evaluate the essays for their theological competence, but I still read them, and they're almost like a devotional for me. So the essays. For the educational proficiencies for Mark 1, and they are the same whether you are doing educator or administrator. Again, a college transcript. If you were blessed to go to a synodical college and you took some of the theology courses, that goes a long ways in coverage for Mark 1. If you didn't, then you're going to have to give us some other evidence, which might be continuing education units from CCLE sessions where you attended some of the theology presentations, or maybe you've been doing a particular Bible study at your own school, at your own church. We accept that. I mean, we will accept a wide variety of stuff that demonstrates you have been studying your theology. So, again, I mentioned Lutheran teacher diploma before. CCLE continuing education units. Again, don't forget to fill out your forms before you leave. And then if you went to the pre-conference, we do have the pre-conference page now also. Again, if you don't have a Lutheran teacher diploma and you need another way, the evidence of alternative training tends to be more essays, more writing. So you certainly had essays when you took the classes in college, so you probably might even still have some of those. Okay, for Mark 2, this is where the requirements split between the educator and the administrator. So for the educator, we ask for 2 course plans, 2 unit plans, and 5 lesson plans. Because what we're looking for in all of these is, are you demonstrating the use of trivium pedagogy, and are you demonstrating the use of classical resources? Now, I wanted to give you some examples of successful applications, and by the way, we've never had an unsuccessful application, but anyway, I wanted to give you some examples, and I wanted to point out some of the strengths of what might help. For the course plan documents, again, you may be in a school where you do a syllabus. That's pretty straightforward. You have to do your syllabus already for your parents and their students at the beginning of the year, so a syllabus would work. A scope and sequence would work, because that's demonstrating what you're going to have for the whole year. Or a curriculum map would work. I know Pastor Keyser was talking about Veith has switched over to curriculum maps. Just something that gives us the content as over the breadth of time, either a semester of it or a full year of it. It's something that covers the whole course. When you provide this, I will be looking for is the content that's going to be covered, the major resources that are going to be used, the classical pedagogy that you're going to use. Sometimes on a syllabus that'll be under class activities or types of assignments or something. The timing, again, a semester is sufficient. A full year is also sufficient. And you may have a school required format. I don't want you to do something different for this application. I want you to use or send in what you have to use for your own school. So if you have a school required format, just send that in. So those are possibilities for course plan documents. Now, this is actually an example of a course plan where this is over a couple of slides, but they started out, it's a one semester course plan. It's for 4th grade, hate grammar. That's the text that they're using. The timeline from January to May. Little did we know in January 2020 that this was no longer going to be working. This teacher, this is a 4th grade teacher, she listed the materials that the students are going to need because the parents need to know. And then she went into the objectives. Let's see if I can get that. And I wanted to share this one with you, because if you can read it out, she's got the grammar, the logic, and the rhetoric of the objectives. She made her objectives that way. So she's not doing the typical behavioralistic objectives. They're not exactly true statements, as Pastor Keyser was talking about yesterday, but she's thinking in terms of grammar, logic, and rhetoric as she's working on her course plans. And she does have a point down here about the truth statements, that they are considered to be included in the objectives. So this is one example of a course plan. And here's her truth statements as she goes through week 1. And again, she had from January to May, so I could have had 10 more slides with all of her lessons. I didn't do all of that. But so for week 1, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they must not have this class on Wednesday. But she's got her truth statement. So she's giving that overview. So if you have a format at your school, that's what you could be using. And this particular school, this was the format. Okay, so the course are for the broad general overview of what's going to be covered. Then you get to the unit plan. And the unit plan, of course, is a closer look. You're drilling down a level into the curriculum. What are you doing with that specific unit? And it may be a written narrative. You may want to write it just as a mini essay. It may be written lists, or it may be a chart, or you may do it in a table. If you do it on an Excel spreadsheet, I think I'll be sharing a couple of those with you. It could be a portion of your curriculum map, if that's how you do it. It could be, I got one that was a PowerPoint with notes, because that's how the teacher organized that unit, was he did PowerPoints, and then he had his notes to the side. So whatever the format is, as long as it's presenting the entire unit. So I think this is a different 4th grade teacher. It's not my favorite age group. It's so far, it's accidentally that I picked 4th grade so far. But she started out with, again, what unit is it? What's the material, the textbook? And I liked how she put in her classical teaching methods with she created her own vocabulary or abbreviations. M for memorization, W for wonder and curiosity. So I love that classical education still, wonder and curiosity. R for repetition, A, analyze, C, contemplation. Just think, wonder, curiosity, and contemplation. Okay, so how is she using that? Okay, here's her unit plan. This is for week 1. Okay, she's got what the text reading, the experiment, the definition and notes, the unit project, and here, notice she's just stuck in her abbreviations. I think a sub would walk into that classroom and just go, okay, I can do this. This is really very explicit. So this is the format that particular teacher used. This is another example, a different one, Introduction to Basic Liturgy. It's not a 4th grade, pre-grammar, And so it was for preschool and pre-K1, which probably is 4-year-olds. 9 weeks, adjustable, and she just listed her classical methodology here, just straight out. This is our method, what I'm going to be using as we're going through this, and continuing the materials needed, all the things that she would be using in her classroom to create the ambiance, and then the general procedure for the lessons. So, beginning of Luther's morning prayer, review, practice of previous material, direct instruction, chant, and so on. So again, for 4-year-olds, this is a pretty full lesson plan, but this gives the whole way she is presenting this entire unit. This is 9 weeks worth of classes. Here's another one, unit plan example. This was for literature and composition, studying the unit on Homer's Odyssey for 5 weeks, when they'll be meeting twice a week. So she has 10 classes. The unit objectives, somewhat behavioralistic, but not too badly. So she's got this, and then she goes into what they're going to do. And class 1 in a week, and then the second class in the same week. And so for each of her 10 weeks, she has this written out in this chart-like arrangement. So I'm hoping that the examples I'm sharing with you will encourage you so that you can say, oh yeah, mine don't look that different, and so I can just use what I normally do, maybe tweak it just a little, stick in some R's and M's and C's, and that'll get past her. Okay, lesson plan documents. Now we're down to the everyday. We're down to the nitty-gritty. This is, we did the overview. The units is looking a little closer. Now, this is it. Now you're doing it. Okay. In this particular 4th grade, again, the true statement. A predicate nominative is a noun that follows the verb, renames the subject pronoun, the subject person, animal, or thing. It explains or defines the subject. I learned a lot when I read these lesson plans. So, she listed the materials, the previous knowledge. That's always a good thing to, when you're trying to review it. Okay, we've got to make sure the students are remembering. And then she goes right into, she wrote in her lesson plans every question that she's going to guide the students through on predicate nouns. What is a linking verb? And she's got the answer. What is the subject of a sentence? And she's got an example of a sentence on the board where she's saying, what's the subject of this specific sentence? So see, she sent in the very nitty-gritty, which is fine, but you don't have to have that specific if that's not the style that you use. Okay, when I would do my lesson plans, I started out as a foreign language teacher, and so the big cool thing for foreign language teachers was write your foreign language teachers in your foreign language, to be keeping you thinking French, keeping you thinking Spanish. And that was fine until my principal was saying, oh, I just love your lesson plans, they're always so great. And I said, Jeff, they're in Spanish. So don't ever tell your principal, don't catch them like that. Here was another lesson plan. This one literally was on an Excel spreadsheet, okay? Luther seal printing. So they're going to use, students will use printing techniques to make a Luther seal. And so what behavioral expectations? Oh, they're going to sit in a learning position and follow direct instruction. So materials, the concept, the direct instruction examples, and the art concepts. So I thought I wanted to share that example of that teacher's. This is the same teacher, so on another day, students will make a replica of a rose window. It just made me want to be in her class. So she, again, expectations, materials, concepts, the direct instruction examples, and then what they would need to do. So, however you do your lesson plans, they're going to work. Another Excel spreadsheet, probably putting that in white font wasn't so great. But if you can make it out, this is phonics, spelling, and writing. And in this teacher, she has her truth statement. The suffix ing added to words means the action is happening now. Okay, that's a lower level grammar point. Her materials, but again, she's got her classical methods: echo, chanting, choral repetition, and reading in unison. So when she has her actual lesson plans and she's got the step-by-step, she's got the echoing, choral chant, choral repetition, reading in unison. So something, if you don't normally write that kind of stuff on your lesson plans, just for this, stick them in there, and that would be very helpful. That would go a long ways. So again, you see there's a wide variety of whatever you're doing, especially if it's already required by your school. That's what we want you to submit. We don't want you to be worried about having to do something differently. Okay, that was Mark 2 for the educator. How many of you are administrators?
Can I ask a question real quick on that?
Sure.
So if you use like a curriculum that's already got all that planned for you, I mean, the curriculum that's out there is what we use, the classical curriculum. And so it like has like exactly what you're doing that day in each subject. It's like already like you've got your scope and sequence. Mm-hmm. So would you want us just to put like refer to this type of education that or this curriculum we're using, or did you want us to actually copy what's in the book onto the sheet for you?
Do me a favor and actually copy it and put it on that, because I might not be familiar with the particular book that you're referring to.
Okay, yeah, it's just really written out for you already.
Well, that's great. What is it you're using?
Memorial Press.
Yeah, the Memorial Press.
Okay. Quite a few classical resources do that as well.
Like,
Well,
it's got a
that's
teacher's
great.
book that has exactly what you're teaching that day, and it gives you the whole year long what you're doing and when you're doing.
Then I expect to see your application next week. Okay. Another question?
Yeah. At one point you mentioned observation. How does that work for homeschool educators?
I will get to that when I get to Mark 3. Okay, I'm only on Mark 2. For administrators, again, administrators may not be in the classroom, so the requirements for Mark 2 of demonstrating an understanding and a commitment to classical education are going to be a little differently. Come out a little differently. We need an overview of the school's classical curricular organization. That may be written as a narrative, that may be a report, it could be a flow chart, it could be a booklet. I mean, we're talking a whole school curriculum here that you're responsible for. We do want to see somehow indicated the usage of classical instructional strategies by grade levels. And even if you have an old time scope and sequence, they're always saying what a student should be able to do at a certain level. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And then we want an essay from you in which you detail your role in supporting faculty with professional development. If you lead workshops, or if you maybe the whole faculty studies one book throughout the year, if you have a workshop that you have other schools faculties also come to, or maybe you kind of all come together like the Texas schools are fortunate, and they have the Texas Classical Lutheran Education mini conference, usually in January, that kind of thing. So how are you helping your teachers to strengthen and improve their practice? Okay. So again, you have to demonstrate your educational proficiency pretty much the same way, college transcripts, alternative training if you didn't go to, if you don't have a Lutheran teacher diploma or some kind of Lutheran administrative training, such as going through the SLED program or something that the Synod has done. So you also will be writing an essay on continued growth, and so you will talk about what has shaped you and what direction do you see yourself trying to move forward into. So that's very similar. Now, on the Mark III educator, this is on the professional performance. So first thing is the 2 professional performance evaluations or observations. Educational portfolio, that's one of those neat, cool educationalese words, portfolio, where we ask you to explain your approach to discipline, your approach to assessment or grading, and your communication with parents. Very critical that we know, or that you have a system for communicating with parents. And then another essay on continued growth. So maybe this is why I was thinking 7 essays, because there's these other 2 little ones towards the end. Continued growth in the area of classroom or student management, because we are always, when you first start out, your first couple of years, you're just trying to survive. But then as you start getting your experience, you're trying to kind of refine how you work with students and how you manage the classroom, the flow of things. So that's Mark III for educators. Mark III for administrators. We also expect 2 professional performance observations or evaluations. The educator usually is observed by the headmaster or the administrator. The administrator, we need feedback from your board, from your faculty, from your parents, so it's a much wider group of people from whom you can be observed. You can also have another administrator from another school, if you're blessed with one nearby, come in and observe you and then write up. And as I say, we do have a couple of CCLE developed performance evaluation observation forms. We also ask the administrators to give us a portfolio that expresses how they communicate with parents, because we all know administrators talk to parents all the time. I mean, that's your job. So the teachers can be in the classroom teaching. You're out there dealing with the parents. And how do you foster the faculty growth and professional development? And an essay on your growth as an administrator, classical administrator. Now, actually, did I answer your question when I got to it?
About observation for homeschoolers.
Observations for homeschoolers. In the paperwork, I didn't put it in the slideshow. We can have the homeschool educator can still be observed by an outsider, somebody else coming in and observing them. And in terms of providing, sometimes we ask for videos of their teaching to provide some examples. And so we can even look at it and evaluate the teaching performance. So again, homeschoolers, it might be a little trickier for them to provide all of this stuff, but it is doable. It's doable. Okay, so what if you're both an administrator and an educator, which how many of you are both? Yeah, see, there's a few of you. We have a policy that, since the marks are identical, it's just the requirements that are different for Mark 2. So pretend you're only an administrator and do Mark 1. Pretend you're only the administrator and do Mark 3. Do Mark 2 both as the teacher and the administrator. Okay? Then make the application for dual certification and you can get both of them. That was the best I could get out of the board, is to, you only have to do Mark 2 both times. You do have to pay for each of them. So it would be a $200 fee then. So yesterday when you heard Kate Telke and Pastor Keyser both were certified as both educator and administrator. They went through the process, Mark 1, Mark 2 educator, Mark 2 administrator, and then Mark 3. So it is a way to do that. So you decide you're going to do this. You got your stuff all together. Now what? Okay. Well, we have the information form, which was that template that I showed you before. We call it the introduction form because sometimes I don't know who you are. I know a lot of you, but I may not know you as well as I will. So get your information form filled out, get all your stuff together, label them very carefully. Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. It just helps me. And besides, all good educators are highly organized. Send it, and again, you can send it to executive.director or you can send it to certification at CCLE. That certification at CCLE is so new, it was just born yesterday. So I hadn't even had a chance to change it here. And then of course, mail the certification fee to Mr. Benson, treasurer of CCLE, or pay through PayPal. So one way or the other, you do that. Once we get the application, first I get really excited. I'm real happy to get another application. And then we set up a certification review team. It always has a pastor on it because only a pastor will certify or approve the essays for Mark 1. As I said, I read them because I love to read them, but I don't get to evaluate Mark 1, okay? And then Anna and I will both be looking at the rest of the things for a while, and we try to get it done within a month. So once you send it to me, will give me about a month and we will get the team going. We'll read through it. We usually have a Zoom or a phone conversation once everybody has read the materials. I have a spreadsheet that I keep comments on each requirement as to the names of your titles of your essays and information about your educational proficiencies, information that you've shared in your application. That is what gets sent to all the members of the board, along with a recommendation by the certification review team. Okay. The board meets the third Thursday. So I really work hard to try to get it within that month, but if I miss the board meeting, it might actually kind of go a little longer. So, but you don't have to wait months and months and months. So, okay, I think I made it. Any questions? And again, if you want a copy of this, once I make a couple of corrections, I'll be happy to send the email. Yes, sir.
Why should I want to be have this qualification or certification? What benefit would it be to me? I mean, I can imagine, but I wanted to hear it from you.
Okay, I have several responses to that, and it's a very good question. I do get asked that, especially by administrators who want to know why they should ask their teachers to do something, one more thing. I feel that the outside world, and I know we don't need to please the outside world, but the outside world does consider credentials to be of some value. Well, are you impressed with a state teaching certification? I mean, I'm not, but many schools, a certification is considered to be a valuable credential. All right, so if we're going to have to live in a world where we have to have a credential, let's make it a credential that we respect and value. And again, remember, Mark 1 is your understanding and commitment to Lutheran doctrine and faith. So, and that's one kind of maybe idealistic response to that. Practically speaking, if your school is wanting to be accredited by CCLE and you have no one on your faculty who can demonstrate any of these things, that would be a hard sell for us to accredit you. So very frequently when we visit schools that are going through the accreditation process, we say we want to see that your teachers have as much of a commitment as your whoever's pushing the accreditation. We want everyone on board here, and we want to make sure we would like to hope and see that you all have a united, a common understanding of what classical education is, a common understanding, the same way we want an understanding of our common faith. So, does any of that help?
Yeah, well, especially the last one there, yeah, because actually I was also hoping that you might want to just like maybe would touch on that, what is the process of getting the school certified by CCLE,
That's tomorrow's session.
Oh, that's tomorrow's session.
Yeah. And I will say one last little thing. Our contests that we sponsor now are for accredited schools or certified teachers. And so we used to have it just open to the wide world, and the majority of people who participated obviously were Lutheran, but we've kind of narrowed it down so the certification is frequently a requirement not to become accredited, but once you are accredited, you're expected to, like you're expected to support the church with your prayers and tithes and all. You're expected to, support CCLE by going through these processes. So, okay, I think I may be out of time. But so, again, if you want the PowerPoint, just make sure you sign up for it. Thank you.